Pastor Jim Doman of Church United, you all are working with Calvary Chapel in San Jose as
That's
they are
correct.
facing over $1 million in fines for violating California's COVID mandates.
I will obey your word.
It's a fascinating case. And, a lot of these cases are, I think, probably coming out of California, like the salons that are
They
suing
are.
and whatnot. I guess, could you just kind of bring us back? Like, where did this begin?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Allison, I'm going to call it the China virus because we did not know what it was. We knew something was created, something came out of Wuhan that was so scary it would start killing people. And at the time, the US government and I think people around the world were in such a panic. We were seeing what was happening in China, what little we could find out, and then in South Korea and in Italy, that thousands and thousands of people were just dying left and right. And so I think the reaction was, how do we save life? And the government and people did everything they knew possible. How do we preserve Americans' lives? And I mean, I remember we were washing stuff from the grocery store that before it even came into our house. Like the whole world was infected, and we wanted to protect my wife and my children. And so everyone went to extremes, thinking this was going to be a plague that was just going to wipe out humanity. And then we start finding out, wait a minute, this isn't as contagious. We know how to treat it. People can survive. And even high risk people elderly with high risk, have a 98% survival rate. So we've gone from this is going to wipe out the world as we know it, the human population, to people survive. My in laws just recovered from COVID. My father in law was in the hospital 6 days. And it wiped them out, but he's recovering. Didn't even have to go on a ventilator, although they had breathing issues. And I just share that because what we've seen now is a government overreach, particularly in counties and states that are led by Democrats or liberal thinking. And I really see it as a huge power grab. And where we're seeing this the most in two counties in California, one in Ventura and one in Santa Clara County. Calvary Chapel, San Jose is in Santa Clara County.
Okay.
And the county health officials are coming after not only Calvary Chapel San Jose and their senior pastor, but their youth pastor. And I got a call last Monday on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, another pastor saying, Jim, the county's coming after our church. Help us. What do we do? How do we need to talk to a legal team? How can you help us? Because we just got fined $1,200 for having church outdoors, if you can believe that.
I did find an article in Yahoo News this is from December 9th. So some of it could be a little bit outdated, but this is referring specifically to the court restraining order, I guess, that was filed. So just to give people some background on the specifics here. So this is saying Calvary Chapel San Jose has been hosting gatherings up to 600 people. Is that jive with what you know? That's like in the several hundreds.
I would say that's about accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, because if the size of the sanctuary, they can, there's plenty of room to do that.
Without requiring face coverings or social distancing, in quote blatant disregard of state and county restrictions, according to a court order filed Monday in Santa Clara County on November 2nd. The court granted a temporary restraining order filed by the county health department to limit indoor gatherings to 100 people or 25% capacity, whichever was lower, and outdoor gatherings to 200 people, and required the church to submit a social distancing plan to be reviewed by the health department. Santa Clara County Judge Peter Kirwan has since found the church and head pastor Mike McClure in contempt of court for willfully disobeying the temporary restraining order by continuing to hold unrestricted indoor gatherings, including worship services every Sunday, with no attempt to enforce social distancing or the wearing of masks. According to the court order, the health department provided numerous photographs and videos as evidence. Now that's interesting to me. So had they actually gone to the church to, kind of infiltrate and figure out what was going on?
They don't infiltrate. They come in, they spy, however you want to do. They come in, and like you quoted Pastor Mike saying, he doesn't police their people. He lets people make their own decisions. And it's interesting, even as you're reading that, I was there yesterday. I've been there to their church all throughout the pandemic. They have signs. They have hand sanitizing stations as you come in. But he's not going to be the Gestapo. He's not going to be the secret police. He's not going to be the, ratting people out. They put the compliance. If people don't want to do it, he's not going to enforce it. And frankly, What you just read is a completely infringement on a constitutionally protected right. Read what you just read. It just said, you're not doing this. The government is mandated. You must wear a mask. The government is mandated. You must stay 6 feet apart. The government, wait a minute. The government cannot mandate anything to the church, period. And I'll tell you, the tragedy here is now the government is not only overstepping their bounds, they're saying you have to be a policeman. And if you we're going to punish you. Now, thankfully, yesterday, they're not going to throw them in jail. That's great news. But the reality is they're at over $1 million in fines. Who can afford that? And what's their crime? They're helping people practicing their constitutionally protected right.
So as you were saying, I believe the defense attorney himself said that in a statement emailed to ABC News, Tyler said, SCOTUS has made it very clear that the government cannot deem a church inessential and ban in-person religious services while favoring essential businesses and operations like bicycle shops and airports. This is precisely what is happening in Santa Clara County. We believe the judge should not have made a finding of contempt. However, we have multiple challenges to this decision ongoing and believe we will prevail. Having talked to constitutional attorneys about this, it does seem like we will see, as these cases move up in appeals, what will be determined, and is there precedent for, public safety overriding certain First Amendment rights? And it does seem to me to not be necessarily, and this may concern people, honestly, that it's not necessarily as clear cut as, this is my First Amendment right, that it does appear that in some circumstances, if the government can argue public safety, which is, we've seen this with like national security, for instance, right? Not just COVID. And then these have been tried in court, and some have been found to be unconstitutional. Think about the NSA program that Ed Snowden blew the whistle on, that kind of stuff. So it does seem kind of, obviously it's interesting that now, we're at the point where we're trying cases of a church holding worship.
The church is doing this. They've remained open. They're helping people in crisis. The mental health statistics and what's happening to people's mental health have skyrocketed. The church has been asking the county, show us your suicide statistics. They refuse to do it. And they're saying they believe the suicide rates are far exceeding the actual death rate from COVID. And ironically, this church has had 0 confirmed cases. And it's amazing, even with that, the county's coming after them. And really the pastor in the church's heart is to help people in need, to help people in crisis. When I went and spoke to both pastors, they said, Jim, almost on a daily basis, they get someone coming into their lobby or calling the church, I'm suicidal. I don't have hope. I don't know what to do. And here these people want to help people, and the government's saying, we're going to fine you and we're going to punish you for exhibiting their constitutionally protected rights. This is in one county in the entire state of California. California, as I mentioned this, 58 counties. How come this isn't happening in Orange County, Riverside County, San Bernardino County, Butte County, San Joaquin County? There's 58 counties. Why is it that it's just one county, one pastor, one church that is bringing COVID to the world? I mean, do you see how absurd this is? I've been going to churches all over the state, and I choose not to wear a mask. I mean, even when I'm outdoors, the media will say, you're not wearing a mask. I'm outdoors. You don't need a mask on. I mean, it is so crazy. And like the attorneys have said, the Supreme Court of the United States has ruled in favor of churches. And yet, this judge seems to think he's above the Supreme Court. He's above the rulings of the land. And now he's going to punish pastors for helping people. At the end of the day, that's where it boils down to. He gave, and I wasn't able to hear the audio. The court really needs to figure out how to get audio, because you could only hear the judge speaking, nobody else. But Pastor Mike gave a beautiful description of the help and the history of what the role of the church is. And it's funny, again, like you kind of asked, well, what are they being tried for? Having church and not being the secret police, not being the Gestapo and telling people, you can't come in here if you do X, Y, and Z. He lets people choose. If you want to go to the church and you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you want to sanitize, and they're doing the necessary protocols, but allowing people, I know this might sound crazy, it's called freedom.
for those who say, "Hey, listen, we've got hospitals that are in some cases, like in LA, are having a hard time keeping up with the caseloads that are coming in." Are you helping or hurting that, making it harder on health professionals? Why not just do your part? I pulled up this web article from ABC7, which I'm guessing is one of the local news stations, and the title is "Ambulances Wait More Than 7 Hours Outside Santa Clara County Hospitals as COVID-19 Cases Soar." This is from Monday, January 4th, 2021. And it says that in Santa Clara County, the hospital system is so stretched thin that at times ambulances are having to wait several hours to offload patients. It's the latest example of how hospitals across the region are stretched thin as ICU admissions continue to rise.
It doesn't change my mind. And the church is helping people in crisis. I mean, does somebody who has an ER emergency room visit or ICU need trump somebody else who is mentally ill facing suicide? I mean, the church is helping people in crisis. It might be different than what ABC News 7 and the Bay Area is reporting, but the crises the church is seeing is a mental health crisis. And I love the heart in which they're responding to help people in need. They said, we're not going to, if someone loses a loved one, and they've had this happen, we're not going to let someone just stand there and cry. We're going to walk over, we'll hug them, we're going to walk with them. We're not going to say keep 6 distance away. I mean, people are hurting, they're broken, and the church is responding to those types of needs and people in crisis.
We saw some pushback on President Biden for, having a mandate on federal lands and then taking his mask off. And then, your governor, right, he went to that dinner at the fancy restaurant. And so I am curious because as somebody who thinks through these issues, like we've talked about to like the end. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. President Biden took his mask off in front of a liberator. Of course, he had to take his mask off. It's Abraham Lincoln. He set the slaves free. Talk about freedom. It's the irony of it all. Do what I say, but not as I do. And we've seen that with Newsom. We've seen that with the president, not even 24 hours in office, federal mandate. And when he said he was going to do that, the 100-day mask, again, I'm going to take away your freedoms on anywhere that's federal. The irony of it is that policy is already in effect. I've been to federal courthouses. I've been on airlines. They won't even let you step foot on a plane if you don't have a mask on. And if you don't have the right type, they won't even let you on. So I'm like, why are you, quote unquote, want to keep taking people's freedoms away when the reality is that was already happening? So I think, do what I say, do what I say, but not what I do. It's just hypocrisy. I mean, literally at the highest levels in this country. And we see that from the president, now our new president, Governor Newsom, and now the county. How come they're not going after all the businesses that are open? I just find it ironic, because I'm sure the Home Depot, Costco, you name any big box store where people are lining up, and you see it all over the place where they're not abiding by the governor's mandate, his rules, and yet they're not bringing in these CEOs and charging them or fining them.
Does the ruling that he's not going to jail right now mean that he couldn't go in the future? Is that still a possibility? Is he willing to take it that far? What about the money and these fines? I'm guessing this pastor doesn't necessarily have $1 million to just hand over, or the church itself. I don't know. Maybe they do. But how far do you take this? That's, I guess, my final question.
Where does this go? I don't know. We were grateful yesterday. The judge said right now jail time isn't an option. But the reality is, the attorney said, anytime anybody's in contempt of court, you can be thrown in jail. I mean, you walk in. Judges are God in that room. Lowercase g, but they are. There is no higher authority except them. And if he said we're going to throw them in jail, they go to jail. And you know what? You've got $1 million to pay. You don't come out. I don't know what they're going to do. The church is at $1 million. And you know what? I don't think the church has $1 million. Sure, if they liquidated all their assets, destroy the organization, all right, they might be able to come up with $1 million. But a pastor and a youth pastor, $30,000? Really? It's heartbreaking that this is what this has come to. People who want to do good and help people in crisis, the government's coming after. And Allison, I don't know about you or anyone who's watching, but if you have a crisis, Do you call the government? Do you call the county health office and said, my child's passed away? Will you come? Can you help us? Or my husband was in a car accident. I need someone to watch my kid. You pick up the phone and call, 611 and say, county, come watch my child and pets? Heck no. You're going to go to a church, a synagogue. You're going to reach to that community of people. And are they going to say, get away from me, Allison? Sorry about your loss. We can't comfort you. No, we're going to come and love you and say, we're here for you. We ache with you. And you know what? If you give me COVID, so be it. I would rather help you in your time of need and worry about that in the future. That's how I think that's the heart of Jesus. That's the heart of God. And that's, I think, the heart of this church and churches we represent. We're not in the business of hurting people. We're in the business of saving lives and pointing people to God. It's plain and simple.
All right. So that was interesting. I hope you guys found some of what he said to be thought-provoking. I certainly do. I have a lot of questions still about what is exactly going on with how these rules are enforced. And to go to one quick question, let's hope this works. Okay. Pastor Jim Doman of Church United, you all are working with Calvary Chapel in... Whoops. Okay. So to go back to what I was saying, essentially, I'm trying to bring this over so you guys can see this. Okay, I'm having a little bit of a technical difficulty today. But anyway, so Some Things in Life says, I will accept his mental health excuse, but he needs to take the virus seriously. If Jesus can't protect you from mental health problems, then he also can't protect you from the virus. All right, so I'm not going to get into like theological debates because I'm sure there were all kinds of things that other people would debate on that one. This is what I think is at the heart of this case. And really the cases that we're seeing around the country, and that is... and we talked about this when it comes to, speech suppression online, for instance, when you ask for there to be such a thing, you have to decide who's going to do it and what are your rules going to be. And so what we're seeing a lot with these COVID policies is that they're not unilaterally, uniformly, consistently applied. And I think that is a fair criticism. I think for somebody to say that, no one's taking the manager of the Costco to jail or, threatening them with that or fining them for having people that aren't following the rules when they go grocery shopping. Why are we the ones that are getting fined for that? So I think that's a fair question, and then when you see, even if say it's just one dinner and it's 6 people, but you see the governor breaking the rules, why didn't he face any consequences? So I think these are fair questions. I will say it is somewhat humorous to me to see people in the chat who are like, Allison's a right-wing journalist for talking about this, when I believe that historically questioning government overreach when it comes to the First Amendment was a liberal talking point. But it's funny how these words seem to make no sense anymore. Like folks I've seen who have spent their entire journalistic careers covering the overreach of the government when it comes to spying and surveillance and wars are now being called fascist. So I'm sorry that I'm not taking you seriously when you guys say that, but it just cracks me up. And that's the hard part about covering this stuff nowadays, right? Is that even if you ask these questions, you're all of a sudden labeled some way, which I do believe is why some journalists will not stick their neck out. I think there are a lot of journalists out there who do kind of wonder about this, but they're super nervous about being labeled like a fascist or whatever else. And so, they just don't say anything, or they just keep repeating the government talking points. And I guess I just don't care. So anyway, let me get to a couple more chats and see if, let's see here. Yeah, this is a good one. I like this one. Hang on, let me show you. Allison is a primo anarchist environmentalist. Yeah, I'm an anarchist environmentalist. I don't know about that one. I'm not an anarchist, but that is pretty funny. Let's see here. Okay, and then Mike, when I go grocery shopping, the majority of people wear masks. Yeah, the majority of people wear masks at my grocery store too. They don't really socially distance, I don't think, the way that they're supposed to. But some of the people at this church I've heard wear masks too. The question is, should the pastor be the person that's, being forced by the government to go around and police the congregants? And if so, how exactly does he get put in that position versus the manager at a grocery store that's not necessarily going around and trying to keep everybody, in line with these policies? And then of course there's the whole nother level of that. Like, should this be allowed anyway? Should you be allowed to force people to do this anyway? And where do you draw the line? Have you proven that this is, that a church, for instance, poses a greater risk, so they have to have more eyes on them versus another thing? And it is another fair point to bring up that these policies have really hurt sort of the little person, the small businesses. They're having a much harder time dealing with this than the big box stores. And so if you're somebody who cares about local business, small business, which again, like, it is very weird how sort of these political identities have kind of gotten all kind of mixed up and stuff. But you're somebody, normally who, like, yeah, I support small business, I buy local. A lot of my buddies in the Seattle area who would say that were 100% Democrat, would never consider themselves a conservative. And now they're the ones who are, like, also saying that, these rules should never be questioned. We shouldn't even ask any questions about them. And, sorry if your mom and pop shop goes away. And I think that's too bad that it's become so polarizing and so politicized. Perhaps that's just where we're at after the last 4 years. I don't know. And the media coverage over it, and, Trump's legacy and whatever else. Maybe we never get back from where we're at. I'm not that old, but I've never seen something that you would think would be sort of based in, it's a disease. So you would think there would be, like, science guiding it, and that we would be talking about it from that standpoint. And I've talked to researchers who've said that they've found one of the most one of the easiest determinants for, like, figuring out what you think about COVID-19 and what should be done is your political affiliation above pretty much every other classification. So I don't know if there's a precedent for that, but I think it's interesting that that's how people look at it. If you're a Republican, you look at it one way. If you're a Democrat, you look at it another way most of the time. And then, of course, there are probably those of us on the outside. I consider myself not part of either one of those parties, but those of us on the outside who are just kind of trying to ask questions that need to be asked. And you know what? If at the end of the day you figure out that, hey, we got to do this and let's do it. But if you don't, and you get to the point where you're like, well, maybe we should reassess this because there are some other collateral damage that we need to be discussing, like he was talking about with, mental health or whatever else, then we should just ask the questions. But you're shamed nowadays even for just asking these questions. And as a journalist, too, like, watching journalists who are nervous about that because they don't want to be called a COVID denier or they don't care about people's lives, when I think there are very valid questions to be asked about government policy and consistency of application and just the collateral damage of it. And who gets to determine, like, whether your ability to, seek treatment or counseling or whatever it is for something that you consider to be just as serious as COVID, like, what should you not be able to do that? I think these are fair questions. Here we go. I'm going to do the super chat. Lord's Watchman, Romans 10:13, for whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see here. I'm going to go to a couple other comments. I'm just going to scroll back up a little bit. Okay, I don't know what this... the dude doesn't want money. If he wanted money, he would declare it non-essential. Who is the dude? Can you clarify that for me so I can understand what you're saying? We are ready to be back. I'm guessing it's be back in church with our church family. People that don't have a great faith family don't understand their essential role. Oh man, I'm gonna get excommunicated. I don't know what you wrote. Actually, there was a lot of local support for small business during Christmas. Restaurants are the ones with the issue. Yeah, but actually I've run into other small businesses that are not restaurants that, are having a little bit more difficulty, because I just think about it. They're not dealing with the same necessarily. They don't have the same, like financial padding, and so like any dip, I think affects them more. Mike, you don't seem shamed. I'm not shamed. I don't know what that is in regards to. Okay. I keep going. Let's see if we got anything else we got to talk about here. Something. I don't know why you're saying something a million times. What does that mean? Some things in life. Okay, I get his complaint that grocery stores are open, but does that mean both places are the same, similar? Does that mean a church can ignore safety measures? No, I mean, his point was that there are other places that are also ignoring safety measures. In other words, maybe they're not doing it intentionally. Like this guy's saying, they're not necessarily saying like we refuse. It's just that they're not going to police the people there. And I mean, let's be honest. Like I've been to many grocery stores or other stores where people are getting like close to each other, and almost everybody I see wears a mask. But you know, if you're a manager of a grocery store, you're going to run around with your hair on fire all day and force people to, you know, act a certain way or what? That was his point. That was a point he was making. Some churches adapted, I read in some cases, where they would use a drive-in movie theater for services. Yeah, we saw actually a church where we used to live that people were like in their cars in the parking lot. But it's too cold for that right now. I don't know pastors standing outside where we are. They're you know, even in our area we've seen just differences in the way like restaurants or churches are dealing with this. And of course in some areas even the law enforcement is dealing with it differently. So it's not even like it's being consistently applied. Some law enforcement agencies are choosing to not enforce the policies. So it's just, to me, it's kind of like, I don't want to go as far as to say it's kind of a mess, but like, you know, it is confusing. I will just leave it at that. Like, it is confusing for the average person who's sitting back saying like, who's making up these rules and how are they making them up and how are they being applied consistently? And is it just for the people who are like in a position of power that when they mess up or break the rules, they're not held accountable? Just saying, I think these are fair questions, and you know, blame who you will for it, but I don't think that the way that we've you know necessarily gone about dealing with this has left people a whole lot of faith that they're, you know, these are necessarily like just fair, consistently applied policies. And okay, seems like COVID is helping to create counter markets. It's an interesting idea. Some churches have held congregations inside big box store like Walmart. Kind of weird how it is legal in a corporate megastore but illegal in a church. What is a public health pretext for a global economic reset? Boring. I don't know what that's for. Okay, we got a super chat here from Seth. For your babysitter intern fund. Thank you, Seth. I appreciate it. And thanks for the support on Patreon too. Oh, and I guess it's probably a good time to bring this up as well for folks. I am going to start doing something with my live streams where I haven't totally decided. One of my ideas is to probably have them live for and up on my YouTube channel for maybe a day and then make them private, and then they're going to be on Locals and Patreon and other sites that I'm on. Right now I'm just on those two. That way I'm trying to move myself away from being dependent on the YouTube model, because I don't think I should have to tell everybody. It's just a little, you know, I'm not really sure where we're headed with these platforms. So I'm trying to branch out a little bit. And, you know, the folks who support me like on Locals or on Patreon, you know, I want to give them some content that I feel like, you know, they're supporting me. So give them a little bit extra. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that, because I don't have a lot of time to produce a ton of extra stuff. So one of the ideas I have is I might make my live streams available for only a day on YouTube, and then these two sites will be available afterwards. So I may have highlights that I'll post, but probably the whole thing is going to eventually be privatized. I'm not totally sure if I'm going to do that yet, but that's one of the things I'm considering. So if you're interested in going to either one of those sites, the links are in the description of this video, and we'll see where we get. I have hope that we will figure out the tech scene. So maybe we'll figure it out on YouTube. I don't know. Right now, YouTube is super easy, user-friendly, super easy, user-friendly. And for me, it's definitely the widest net. But that's also because that's where I've been investing the most time. So I'm looking at where do I where do I go from here? Where should I be putting more of my energy just to build a platform or build my stuff on a platform that's got a little bit more stability and not so much, drama around it. Not a bad idea. I'd recommend you edit the content down if you're going to be charging a premium for it. Well, some people say the opposite, actually. They like the longer chats. I've had people like complain that I edited it down. I tried that once and then I stopped doing it because I got so many complaints about it, because some people just like to watch it. So I just figure people just don't have to watch it. They don't want to. And most of my videos are about 10 minutes or less, but the live streams, it's some people just like to watch them, so let them. Anyone here have COVID? I don't. Well, that I know of. I don't think we've gotten it yet, but then again, I think you can be asymptomatic and not know, so who knows? Tanya has a good point. What was Tanya's point? I'm going to have to go back and look at that. I'm going to scroll back up, see if I can find this. Where's Tanya? Y'all crack me up in the chat sometimes. I'll tell you what. I try to keep up with them, and sometimes maybe it's a good thing I don't read them all. Oh, here we go. This is here we go. Evening in Seattle. Small businesses are offering services underground and going cash only to survive. I've heard about that. People are going to find a way. That's kind of my other thing. Like this is going to bring us to some interesting times. I will. A lot of this I think will play out in court, but I believe you're also going to see folks just figuring out a way to skirt the rules. And I think they already are, like you're saying. A journalist that is afraid to ask questions is not a journalist. Yeah, we had this whole talk about what is journalism, but I agree, you're definitely not it's hard to be a curious journalist who's talking about the stuff that could potentially get you in hot water if you're afraid. So, but people are people, and it's not even just the public that I think some journalists are afraid of, it's their own peers, because look at some of the journalists who have spoken out, questioning some orthodoxy, and they're so quickly labeled and it's just sort of thrown out of the inner circle. Not that I think some of these people probably don't care, but it's not fun. I don't think it's fun. I don't know. Maybe you guys think it's fun when your friends say they don't want to hang out with you anymore. So, but a lot of journalists, I think, get worried that they're it's like it's peer shaming that happens in journalism just like any other industry. So, and it's getting worse now because social media mobs can come after you. I'm Jewish, not Christian, and also an atheist. I'm a Catholic. It's pretty simple. Mask and social distance, and you can have church. Don't, then no church. Well, okay, so here's a counter to that one. And how you do that. So to say you don't have the facility to allow everybody to be there and be that many feet apart. Okay, that one thing they might say. Now you may say, well, then sorry, you have to have a capacity issue just like other places that will only let a certain amount of people in. Okay. Then the next question is, okay, who's policing the capacity issues at these other facilities? You probably could find violations all over the place. My guess is if you were to go after every facility, every business, every church that has violations, like you wouldn't be able to keep up with them in the court system. I mean, courts are already backlogged. So they're having to make decisions about who they go after. So I think that's an interesting question. Like, how do they make those decisions? What makes one more worthy of a health department going after them over another? Simply because I think you probably find this stuff everywhere. And then who's responsible for it? Like, again, this pastor would say it's not his job. Anyway, all right, well, actually, it is interesting. People are bringing up the 2 mask thing right now. That is something that I've been seeing, that now they're saying that if you wear 2 masks, then it's like turning a normal mask into an N95 mask. I don't know about the science behind that, but I have been seeing those in the headlines. How have you all been when you've flown, because we've flown a couple times, and I will say that I used to get a little bit sick on airplane. Like every time I'd fly, I'd get just like a couple days later, I get a little sniffle or something. And I have not gotten sick one time flying. And I don't know, what that is. My guess, honestly, is actually, I know the air filters work really well. That's what I've read. But they hand you the alcohol sanitizing pads, and I actually think that makes a big difference. Like wiping down the seatbelts and the tray table and everything and the armrests and stuff. So I'm actually going to keep doing that because I think that makes a big difference. Have you done any journalism reporting on the gym in New Jersey that refuses to close? They took the fine money from their bank account. Wow. No, but I've heard about that gym. I haven't done any stories on them. Maybe I'll call them up and see if they'd be willing to come on the channel. I only fly private now. Lucky you. That would be nice. They are trying to deal with a human work need for preventing all assemblies and political movements or support networks. It's not just a church issue, also homeless shelter, similar projects. I'll have to look into the homeless shelter issue. That's another interesting question. Next requirement will be that your mask must be made of duct tape. Let's see. I flew at Thanksgiving and at Christmas, and I got sick after each of those flights. Didn't used to be that way. Yeah, I never got sick. Not these last few times. We've been on about 6 flights in the last few months, and I have not. Let's see here. Okay, I already got to that one, I think. Have you done any journalism? Okay. All right. Well, it was good talking with you guys. I hope you're we're interested in this topic. What's the COVID endgame? I don't know. I don't know when this goes away because there's already a new strain. So I don't think this is going away anytime soon. I think that we're going to be seeing this for quite a while. Might as well wear a diaper on the face. Well, we have plenty of those at our household. We have lots of diapers. So we could do that. Immunity is built upon germs. This is true. All right. I think we're good. You guys feel like we've done enough chatting here today? I think we can probably let this one go for now. I'm going to cut this one down, repost it, probably make this one a little bit shorter. Again, just a heads up to everybody if you were just making it into the chat, check out the links in the description and either head over to Patreon or Locals. For now, I'm going to have more sites that I upload to, but that's where I'm at now for like if something goes haywire and, you need to get a hold of me or I decide to start, doing more content in either one of those places. I've been seeing other, like, I believe somebody sent me a clip of, I think Tim Pool now is like totally Alex Jones. He's got his own platform. And I think probably that's going to be the route a lot of people that have large followings go. I think I'm still kind of flying under the radar right now because I don't have a huge following, but I don't know. I just don't know. I'm not taking any chances, so. You're a horse person. Why aren't you discussing ivermectin? I don't know. What does that mean? In regards to COVID? Is that what you mean? Are you talking about my horses getting COVID? Please, everybody, stop denying reality. COVID is real. Let's start caring about each other. Is anybody denying COVID is real? Maybe I'm sure maybe there are people that are denying it. I don't think COVID is fake. I just think there are fair questions to ask about the government response. And honestly, how to deal with COVID. We saw kind of at the beginning that even doctors who were speaking out against the ventilator protocol were shamed at first, that was even something on YouTube that was considered divergent from the, sort of mainstream ideology for treating it, even though now, it's kind of common knowledge that those ventilators didn't really always do what everybody wanted them to do. And in fact, in a lot of cases, people died on them. A lot of people died on them. And I think maybe people didn't want to talk about that because we had invested so much money in it. Maybe, again, it was politics. But there were a couple doctors that I remember at the beginning that were speaking out about how they were like, I think we need to be treating this differently. We need to be giving oxygen. That's why I talk about suppression of speech online, simply because you're always going to have the next thing that somebody says that could end up being like the thing that we all agree on as a consensus in a year or two is going to sound very off-putting at first. That's always how it works. New ideas are always that way. So to just say that we should just kick somebody off a platform because they're questioning, mainstream ideology, whatever their profession is, I think is dangerous. All right, everybody. As a journalist, have you examined the WFCAP? No, I haven't. I'll look it up. Science is built upon skepticism. Jason, I am a huge follower. Jason, thank you. I forgot to text you back. Sorry. I'll do that later. Ivermectin is a proven prophylactic COVID. I'll have to check that out. I do need to worm my horses. I'm going to let you know that one. I do need to warn my horses. We're overdue for that. Well, those guys can get their own platform, but who's hosting them? As long as they have independent hosting, they might survive. I don't know. I know I can't afford that right now, so that's not an option for me. It is interesting. What about COVID-2, The Empire Strikes Back? They have that in England. World Economic Forum COVID Action Platform. Oh, okay. Maybe that would be a good video idea. I'd definitely go check that out. There's so much related to the Economic Forum side of things that I need to do more research about. Just scrolling through other. Stop with the care for each other. This assumes cloth masks protect. They don't. This assumes others are responsible to you. They aren't. Use Rumble. I'm so evil. I say talk to God. Coronavirus extra. Yes, I'm in sunny England. We have what? Does the sun shine in England? Is that really a thing? I don't know. Every time I've been to England, it's been like Seattle. Even when I was there in the summertime. But one time when I was in Ireland, it was extremely hot. It felt like California. Maybe I should have just gone to England and seen what it was like there at that time. But I remember riding horses and sweating, like on the beach. I really felt like I was in the Caribbean. It was very hot. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. I'm going to go take care of the kiddo. Thanks for dealing with all of the insanity at the beginning of this live stream and trying to get it set up. Again, I'm going to try to get these to 11 a.m. on Saturdays. That's my goal. 11 a.m. on Saturdays. I'm sure it's going to be like 11:30, but I'm shooting for 11 a.m. on Saturdays. And so plug it in, and I will probably still try to do, the scheduled streams so that you could see it. But there's a whole nother level of technical prowess you need for a scheduled stream, which I know for people that do this regularly, that sounds pretty dumb. But for me, what happened at the beginning actually was that we had plugged in, or no, I forgot to hit go live on YouTube. So with a scheduled stream, there's a 2-part process to going live. And when I just go live on my own without scheduling, it's just one button. And so I pressed the one button I would normally press, and I didn't press a second. So I actually did 10 minutes of the live stream for no one before I realized that I wasn't live. It's just the blonde in me. I'm sorry. Even though you guys think I'm a brunette, but I was a blonde for a good 20 years of my life. So it stays with me. Yeah, I gave a free show to the wall, which, whatever. Thanks for ignoring ivermectin. I guess you know already they don't want it to be discussed. I'm not ignoring it. I just don't know anything about that. I gotta have to go back and look that up. You have very skewed morals on who is bad enough so you can mistreat them while you do this. Who is that? Who are we talking about? Oh, all the trolling will not change that. I don't get this. I don't get what that means. Okay. We get it here. 3 kids, 1 special needs. Children make things take longer and more complicated, but it's okay. Yeah, but they make life wonderful, so. All right. I'm going to end it on this. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining the live stream. Don't forget to check out the links in the description, and I will have More videos probably. I'm going to take tomorrow off, but I'll see you guys on Monday, okay?